Let me begin with a working definition of the word synchronization in the context of an organization. As stated by Cardenas and Goldstein in 2002, synchronization is a process of linking events and actions so that they occur at the same time or in a predetermined sequence. Accordingly, synchronized organizations are successful and non-synchronized ones are unsuccessful. Synchronized organizations are able to move all their constituent components in concert and in harmony with each other so as to derive maximum synergy with an organization's entity. This leads to organizational behavior where all actions and policies are synchronized with each other. All actions and policies build up upon each other in the same direction, and all actions and policies reinforce each other's impact in order to increase chances of success. In short, organizational synchronization, or OS, is the concept of harmonizing, aligning, and synchronizing the internal and external strategies, tactics, and actions in an organization to maximize its performance and global competitiveness. Cardenas first published this concept in 2001 in the context of global competency titled International Managerial Leadership, or IML, certified by the San Diego Global Knowledge University. Why should we be interested in OS at this juncture? Globalization has generated an external environment of intense change and turbulence, and quite often the internal strategies and tactics of an organization do not change or adapt, leaving it poorly synchronized. A highly synchronized organization is agile, flexible, and responds continuously and effectively to change, anticipating rather than reacting to the external demands of globalization. Various other IT video conferences have discussed OS. IT speaker Goldstein in March of 2002 described this process as working outside in, by looking outside the organization to see how it needs to synchronize itself, and then reshaping the organization internally to serve those outside needs. This implies that organizational synchronization has two distinct modes: synchronizing the organization's actions and moves with external elements. Number two, synchronizing internal organizational elements to capitalize on the organization's external environment elements. He also described the 10 characteristics of a well-synchronized organization, the importance of change, the 10 mindsets for achieving OS, and the 12 steps required for implementation. While external environment plays a key role in reshaping the organization internally, the internal elements have to be in harmony with each other. ITC speaker Finnegan stated in December 2002, I quote, "In an environment where speed is not a measure, but a condition to compete, we must be able to prepare ourselves and our people on 3 planes. First, from the management team to the employees, contractors, suppliers, and above all customers, we are concerned with human beings and their emotions. Second, we must know the purpose and the capability of the technology that is required for the results we desire. And finally, we need to be able to manage the vast amount of knowledge that our technology can capture and turn it into useful actionable information. This is ETK. In other words, synchronization in an organization can be implemented through an ETK conceptual framework which identifies the key human or emotional aspect, which is E, technological, which is T, and knowledge, which is K, the dimensions of the organization, as well as the interrelationship between them and with the external environment in which they operate. The four main variables under E are communication skills, human emotion skills, intellectual skills, and cultural skills. The second component, T, includes telecommunications, IT management, technology acquisition, transfer and blending, research and development, and innovation. The essential concepts of K, knowledge competence, are visioning and strategic planning, relevant knowledge acquisition, knowledge management and protection, human resource development and training, business plan protocol, benchmarking, and assessment and continuous expansion. In a broad sense, these are all the definitional aspects of the ETK model first created by Cardenas in 2001. Now, let us look into the synchronization within and in between E, T, and K segments. As described earlier, E, T, and K have several components within each segment. For instance, under E, communication skills include written and symbolic expression, listening comprehension, debate and group communication, and oral expression. Similarly, human emotion can be sorted into subcategories such as attitude, tolerance, self-confidence, emotional intelligence, and leadership. Synchronization within E implies that, for example, communication skills and human emotion skills are employed in such a way as to reinforce each other in a synergetic way. Depending on the type of organization being studied, some skills are more important than others for the purpose of quantification. For instance, an R&D organization may consider intellectual skills more important than others, while an outsourced call center located in a foreign country requires considerable skill in communication and culture sensitivity issues. Let's call these internal interactions within E as segment 1. To start the quantification of the OS, we award 10 points for this segment. As we progress with this line of thinking, we would develop 9 more segments, that is 2 to 10, and allocate 10 points for each to arrive at a total of 100 points. Similar arguments hold good in relation to subcategories under T, that is segment 2, and under K, that is segment 3, with 10 points each. Thus 30% of the points allocated goes for within each one of these 3 parts, E, T, and K. Now that we have looked at each individual components of this ETK model, we are now ready to examine synchronization between any 2 of the 3 segments. It is not sufficient for organizations to exhibit harmony within each category of E, T, or K. It's equally important for technology to go hand in hand with knowledge. Knowledge is essential to capture meaning for the vast amount of data that technology makes available to the organization. Only then can an organization project trends and attempts proper decision-making. Similarly, when technology innovation decisions are made, focusing on the emotions present within the organization leads to an empathic decision and helps in building rapport within the employees and the people. It motivates people to work with heart, to contribute in synergetic ways towards the common good of the organization and effect a quantum change in the purpose and strategies of the organization. Emotional variables also inspire the organization to synchronize its internal strategies, tactics, and operations with the customers and community, thereby building rapport and empathy. Since these are three possibilities, E, T, EK, and TK, each combination is allocated 10 points for a total of additional 30 points. A logical extension of this approach is to measure synchronization in all the three categories. For instance, knowledge competence integrates technology tools with the appropriate cultural tools and attitudes, the soft stuff. McGregor, in 1985, pointed out, I quote, "Most managers agree that the effectiveness of their organizations would be at least doubled if they could discover how to tap the unrealized potential present in their human resources." This merger results in an empowered learning environment. These cultural tools and attitudes make empowerment a reality, facilitating problem solving and innovation. Another 10 points are allocated for this integrative outlook between E, T, and K, raising the total to 70 points. It is not sufficient to ensure synchronization at any given time. Changes take place from time to time, and the organization has to keep pace with these changes to ensure viability through dynamic synchronization. Another 10 points are given for these characteristics. The concept of environmental turbulence was discussed earlier. Ansoff, in 1990, has made significant contributions to this subject. He has provided specific guidelines to measure this compatibility of an organization with its environment. This should add another 10 points towards organizational synchronization, bringing the total to 90%. Finally, an additional 10 points are allocated for dynamic synchronization in combination with compatibility with the external turbulence. This brings the cumulative total to 100 points for organizational synchronization. An organization which receives 100 points becomes a benchmark to that sector. World-class organizational performance should be evident for such an organization in terms of its performance measures. Organizations that are successful are the ones that develop strategies, tactics, and operations by synchronizing elements of their external elements such as customers, competition, community, suppliers, and other inputs, with the elements of their internal environment such as emotions, technology, knowledge, information, and finance. As commented by ITC speaker Finnegan in 2002, the force at work is dilution of the knowledge pool and oversimplification to make something complex accessible in an easy way. Thomas Leonard, the founder of Koch University, also made a great comment. He was talking about development of skill levels and described the process as moving from competent, doing the basics well, to expert, doing the non-basics well, to being a master when you make things up. This make things up may sound flippant, but the idea is that you are no longer conscious of why you do something or react to something you do. Your decisions are influenced by the full richness of the content, with a seemingly infinite capacity for variation and adaptation. Another way to put it is that mastering the use of knowledge has 4 phases. The unconsciously incompetent, the consciously incompetent, consciously competent, unconsciously competent. The goal of ETK is to graduate to the 4th phase, E, competence, to bring out the best in employees and to understand the customers better. The T, competence, to facilitate the acquisition and utilization of customer information. And K, competence, to create effective actions and value creation for the organization. All this within the context of our environmental turbulence. Now that organizational synchronization can be measured in a scale of 0 to 100, based on the framework for synchronization, what remains to be done is to allocate points earned with the appropriate level of synchronization. Accordingly, we propose that an organization may be placed in any one of the 5 mutually exclusive levels of synchronization based on the scores earned. If the total score is only between 0 and 30, we would assign level 1 to that organization. Similarly, level 2 requires a total score with the interval of 31 to 55. Any score between 56 and 75 would imply level 3. If the organization receives a score between 76 and 90, then it has earned level status 4. Finally, level 5 is reserved only for those exceptional organizations which attain a score between 91 and 100. And as organizations progress towards higher levels of synchronization, the bandwidth becomes narrower and narrower, reducing gradually from an interval of 30 to 10. It may be noticed that most organizations may fall under the level 3 category, while exceptionally successful ones in the new global economy may reach the highest level 5. This metric would be useful to an organization to know whether their performance has or has not yet reached a level of excellence. What needs to be done to come closer to world-class performance and superior global competitiveness, and what stimulus is needed to keep them abreast with the changing circumstances. Level 1 and level 2 performers are typically those that have serious handicaps in at least 2 of the ETK dimensions, and in the alignment of the internal and the external functions and tactics. Usually, these organizations are unable to perform as globally competitive enterprises. Level 4 and 5 performers, in contrast, are fully immersed in global markets and opportunities, having aligned their internal and external efforts in congruence with the prevailing turbulence of the world environment. In conclusion, organizational synchronization is both desirable and rewarding, particularly in the context of global competitiveness. It is often said, what you cannot measure, you cannot manage. The first step in measurement is the development of an appropriate scale. The scale that I have outlined today revolves around the ETK concept, with sufficient room for modification to include other advancements leading to performance excellence. To provide us with a further insight on the specific aspects of organizational synchronization, I would now like to turn to a panel of very distinguished colleagues for implementation.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Krishnamoorthy. I regard implementation as a critical step which impacts the success or failure of any project. Implementation should receive as much care, resources, and focus as the planning and modeling steps. And let's clarify that I'm addressing implementation guidelines for synchronizing organizations using the ETK framework after the measurements have been made and the organization has already been assessed at a particular level of synchronization based on the respective metric that you've outlined. The first guideline, I would say, for implementing a plan for improving the synchronization is to look at the details in your assessment score. The metric basically can be used to analyze what needs to be done to improve the organization's level of synchronization for moving closer to world-class performers. Identify the low scores that indicate a weakness in synchronization of the ETK elements in the organization. These are the elements which may need a boost or need rethinking in terms of strategy or tactics. Next, put together an upper management team to decide which organizational functions and operations would best support the identified low performers in synchronization among the ETK aspects. The reason for putting together an upper management team together is that all organizational projects need an upper management champion if their chances of success are to be maximized. However, the actual buy-in by the organization will happen only when this initiative is owned and supported by the entire organization. The emotions of the employees at all levels and in all functional departments can be positively engaged by utilizing a cross-functional and multi-level team as the group in charge of this program. This cross-functional multi-level team should then engage in rethinking and re-strategizing on the various aspects. The idea here is to identify organizational strengths and weaknesses which feed into the ETK synchronization framework, tailored to your particular organization. The strengths should be maintained and the weaknesses addressed. This will help in writing the blueprint for improving the synchronization in your organization. For example, if T, the technology, has been identified as an element in low synchronization with the customer aspect, then maybe your organization can move towards cementing its customer relationships by sending focused promotional messages to clients every month using their buyer profile trends from your technology systems. Another very important step in implementation is a feedback loop. You should reevaluate your decisions and progress at an appropriate frequency. Progress should be shared with all stakeholders, and adjustments should be made based on lessons learned. In a nutshell, I think these guidelines would be some of the most important ones to remember in the implementation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachna. Dr. Jim Goodrich, Alliant International University is very fortunate to have you as the founding Dean of Marshall Goldsmith School of Management, otherwise MGSM, here in San Diego. You are a recognized authority on leadership excellence and coaching. I wonder if you could elucidate on the impact of leadership on organizational synchronization.
Thank you. You've presented very well the need for organizations to continually innovate and synchronize in the face of external turbulence and a very competitive global environment. This is an important message because of the fact that today most of them do not deal well with these imperatives for change. To make change happen is more than an intellectual exercise. It's critical to organizational survival. As the events of the last few weeks and months have suggested, just ticking off the necessary conditions for organizations to adapt well to the flat world or globalization is insufficient. The ETK model is very clear. it's logically exhaustive, and it shows the connections between the different ETK elements, particularly the concept of leadership under human emotion skills as part of E. But one needs to have leadership added to the concept of organizational synchronization to make ETK truly dynamic in the sense of moving people to action. In my years with Marshall Goldsmith and others, I've worked with and coached many leaders. I've given 360-degree feedback around the world to executives in many different kinds of organizations. My impression is that the ability and the effectiveness of organizations to do all these many things at once, or synchronization, is highly dependent on the power of leadership. Leadership is one's ability to influence others. This means having an impact on people and on the organizations that one leads. In many organizations, people are unaware of the need to change, or they have become cynical and complacent. Thus, when sudden tugs of turbulence jolt the organization, they're either not ready, or they run around holding meetings, gathering information, which is not the same as knowledge management, and keeping themselves busy without really accomplishing anything. Good leaders are able to appeal to us on a primal level. They enable us to feel the importance of changing the organization, and they anticipate and overcome the natural complacency and resistance to change within it. They do this by going to a deeper level. Good leaders appeal to our emotions as well as to our reason. As John Cotter tells us in his new book, A Sense of Urgency, good leaders need to make a heartfelt case for change when asking people to carry out the kind of changes envisioned in organizational synchronization. They need to encourage people to commit themselves to important goals and to solving complex problems which might have no immediate or obvious solution. They need to focus people's energy not just on making the pieces fit together or incremental improvements, but on significant issues that will transform the organizations they lead. The essence of leadership is to get people to care about making these changes and aligning with our goals. Otherwise, we just get a series of laundry lists. Here's 10 more things we need to do, or empty meetings of hastily formed committees to debate the data and what it tells us. True leadership means we have to inspire our people. I appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel, to be at a management school with distinguished professors like Rene, like Roshna, like Krishna, who generate ideas and supervise our doctoral students. I invite the global community to participate in these kinds of discussions on an ongoing basis, especially in these times of increased turbulence and change.
Thank you, Dean Goodrich. Mr. Jorge Cardenas, doctoral candidate at MGSM, I commend you for taking up the cause of organizational synchronization as the main theme of your doctoral dissertation. Could you tell us briefly what you have done so far and what you hope to achieve in this pioneering research investigation?
Yes, thank you, Krishna. I'm glad to be here. I've been doing research on the ETK conceptual framework and creating the research design for an organizational synchronization field study I will conduct. After researching previous work, I've developed a great appreciation for the three basic components in the system framework, and I am confident that they are instrumental in driving organizational performance. I've decided to do my research study on an empirically proving that each dimension, E, T, and K, is a predictor of organizational performance and thus global competitiveness. In addition, I will also seek to prove that an organization which is competent in all three areas achieves higher performance than an organization that is competent in only two areas, which in turn achieves higher performance than an organization that is only competent in one. Initially, I will be sampling educational institutions in Latin American countries and other developing regions because of the increased global turbulence those educational systems have been experiencing. These educational institutions will benefit greatly from the study because they will be able to identify areas where they are underperforming and areas where they are excelling, so they can then take the proper measures in addressing these areas. This research study will be the first to measure the degree to which the three dimensions of the ETK framework do in fact predict performance. If the results prove a strong correlation, other studies can build upon the results to further elaborate the concept and the measurement tool. I will particularly welcome the educational institution members of the ITC network to take part in this pioneering study. I personally believe that the ETK concept can positively affect all organizations given its sound framework based on organizational realities and a simplistic OS measurement tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. Mr. Arjun Natarajan, General Manager of Mabamex, the metal toy-making factory in Tijuana, Mexico. You are our most important client with a first-hand exposure to organizational synchronization. What is the source of your inspiration in steering the ship with OS amidst rough waters?
Thank you, Krishna. Yes, I run a fairly large manufacturing facility for metal toys in Mexico. Let me first describe the challenges we face. I have about 3,000 employees at peak. There are about 180 plastic injection molding machines which produces more than 2,000 different parts to be assembled into 50 different toys every week during the peak period. Our supply chain of raw materials is spread across the globe. Because of the tight labor market in the part of Mexico where our plant is located, the average labor turnover in the city has been in the vicinity of 6 to 8% per week. Mathematically, this translates into about 300% turnover of workforce every year. As you all may know, in 2007, there were incidences of heavy element contamination in toys imported from China. This led Mattel to set its internal bar on quality very high, much higher than legal requirements in many cases, because that is what consumers expect from a company such as Mattel. These stringent quality standards imply very diligent enforcement of quality at every point in the supply chain, including our raw material vendors, incoming inspection at our factory, in-process inspection, and finally, inspection of the finished goods. Mattel factories are expected to produce not only the highest quality products, but also at competitive cost. As labor costs in Mexico are higher than those in emerging nations of Asia, Mexican factory has a built-in competitive disadvantage against production in Asia. With all these challenges, what did we do? First, we focused on people, the E component. People get things done. People need to have ownership and feel motivated. We all want to be part of the winning team. All of us go to work wanting to do the best. We want to feel we make a difference. This is motivational. My first priority, therefore, was to focus on this, set the culture in the company that will foster such attitudes. The second action was to ensure everyone knew what was expected of them and knew how to get it done. I see technology and knowledge as essential resources to get results, like key tools. So, we decided to do an extensive T and K training as an ongoing process. Every employee has to go through at least 40 hours of training and refresher courses. In addition, selected employees receive higher level leadership and communication training. Finally, we pursued organizational synchronization by focusing on systems and automation to make our processes smoother and error-free. For example, we eliminated manual data capturing activities to the extent possible by the use of barcode and other digital readers. We are setting up real-time electronic boards at every assembly line that will display in real time production quality, production quantity, and downtime information. So the assembly workers have a scorecard to set themselves to. We are careful in not automating inefficiency. For example, before we build a conveyor belt to move anything from here to there, we look for ways to eliminate the movement itself. The results? We are the only major toy manufacturer in Mexico, close to the largest toy market in the world. We ship to all parts of the world, including China and India. Our defective rates are among the lowest in the industry. Our people turnover is about a third of the city average. I'm proud to say that our measured level of organizational synchronization in 2007 was level 4, and I'm committed to achieving level 5 very soon. Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you, Arjun. I hope you have all been enriched with the valuable insights and contributions from the distinguished panel of colleagues and friends of ITC. I believe OS is a long overdue framework and model to measure, access, and monitor the synergetic potential of the optimal performance, client loyalty, and global competitiveness of our organizations. I invite you all to join us in this exciting effort to propel our organizations towards excellence in the new global economy. Thank you.